Welcome to the Relationship Diversity Podcast, where we celebrate, question, and explore all aspects of relationship structure diversity, from soloamory to monogamy to polyamory and everything in between, because every relationship is as unique as you are. We'll bust through societal programming to break open and dissect everything we thought we knew about relationships, to ask the challenging but transformational questions: who am I, and what do I really want in my relationships? I'm your guide, Carrie Jaroslaw, best-selling author, speaker, intuitive, and coach. Join me as we reimagine all that our most intimate relationships can become. Today's episode is part of our conversation series. I'm just one voice in this relationship diversity movement, and it's important to bring more unique perspectives into the conversation. Today, I'll be talking with Debra Lee May about her 32-year marriage, the ups and downs, joys and challenges. We talk about the importance of continually reinventing your relationship with yourself and your partner during the hard times to move through them with intention and clarity. A little about Debra. She's a resiliency and reinvention mentor, helping women to honor and reframe their challenging experiences and use them as a foundation to build a life that lights them up. She was at the pinnacle of a successful and rewarding corporate career when a series of family crises occurred. She spent the next decade caring for everyone else in her life and experienced a devastating loss of identity and confidence. Using powerful mindset practices and self-care techniques, she was not only able to reinvent herself, but now helps women embrace their truth, live lives full of meaningful relationships and renewed clarity. Debra has been featured in publications such as Authority Magazine, The Mindfulness Journal, and UpJourney. She's a speaker and host of the Own Your Story video interview series, as well as a frequent guest on podcasts addressing women and resiliency. Let's get into the conversation. Hello, Debra. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on the podcast. Everyone, please meet my friend, Debra Lee May. Welcome.
Hi, Carrie. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm so happy because we always have really wonderful conversations. And Debra and I met at the beginning of COVID. We were in a class together and just instantly hit it off. Actually, I think it took about maybe 5 months for us to connect. I had you in my book, like, I got to connect with Debra, but we never did for about 5 months. But then when we did, it was just an instant connection. And one of the things that has always inspired me about Debra is that she is about 10 years ahead of me in terms of her long-term relationship with her husband. And I always felt very, enlightened when we talked, because I think I still have little kids and, my husband and I, we have a great foundation of communication, but we're also super busy. And sometimes I would feel bad that maybe we weren't connecting as well as we had in the past. And Debra always was a great person to talk to about this, because she had experiences and she made me feel okay with the highs and lows of a long-term relationship. And with her being a resiliency and reinvention coach and mentor, she always helped me in these times. So this is why I wanted to bring you on to talk, Debra, about your relationship and the journey that you've had over, you said 23 years you've been with your husband?
32.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I'm way off. Then you're like 15 years ahead of me. Wow. Okay. So you have so much to teach and share about this topic, but will you first start and just tell us a little bit about your story with your husband, how you met, and just a little bit about your journey?
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks, Carrie. We have kind of a funny story. We met at work. I was 25, he was 26. And so you can do the math there. But that was the day I quit. I met him the day I quit. So I always thought it was very meant to be. Our names were very similar. So, there was a lot of things that were just fate, and we hit it off instantly. And And within that first week, I'm not even exaggerating, within that first week, we were talking about how we saw our life together.
Wow.
And, a whole lot about our families and how we grew up, and how we could see it together. It was just this incredible kind of love at first sight, to be really honest. We were engaged 5 months later and married a year and a half later.
Wow.
And now, well, where we are now.
Wow. And so you were sharing a little bit about how you talked about your childhood and the intentions that you set together. Can you go into that a little bit?
We both, and I think everybody, I don't think anybody gets away from experiencing some sort of trauma in their childhood. And we had long discussions about the different, difficulties in our childhood in our families. And that's never to say that we didn't love our families. We both love our families deeply. But, we both came out with different scars. And from that first week, we discussed how we didn't want our lives to be that way. And, the funny thing is that I always used to say, I have no idea what I want, but I was really clear in what I didn't want. And
Oh.
I didn't want a relationship or to raise a family in the same manner that I was raised. And neither did he, but the experiences were vastly different. And I think, that becomes your point of reference, how you were raised, how your parents dealt with you, the relationship between your parents. And it doesn't really rear its head again until you have kids.
And so
Suddenly
you guys got married and you had children. How far into your marriage?
oh, right away.
Right away.
Not entirely planned, but right away.
Oh.
Best thing that ever happened. So, and it's really a few years, because when they're babies and when they're at home, it takes a little while, but as soon as you're into that busyness, 2 careers, children at home, and you start, I think your mind and your memory goes back to who you were at that point in your life, how you felt, how your parent, what they did, and whether you wanted to be that way or not, it's ingrained in us. Sometimes we don't see, what your expectations are of one another. And then, couple that with the fact that you're so busy, there's, rarely time to talk. And as the kids get older, I have 2 daughters, as they get older, it doesn't get easier. You have less and less time. And, I want to get into this a little deeper. But it's a really great time for me to be discussing this because it's just this month we experienced our first daughter getting married. So, part of me knows what's ahead for her and the difficulties, but also in the intense and incredible joy that can be felt. But, there were some hard lessons along the way in getting there.
What would you say some of those were? I really agree with you. The thing about time and not having adequate time for conversation and for connection. I find that sometimes in my marriage, because we both have 2 jobs, 2 careers, 2 kids, and another relationship. So we're really, really busy. And sometimes, we just are trying to get the stuff done, just like to get the kids taken care of so that they feel loved and cared for. And it's like the thing that seems to suffer is our communication, which doesn't seem healthy.
Well, I think that's really normal. I think that all marriages go through that. Um, and, I was thinking of a couple of things about spending time together and the quality of that time together. Early on, my husband and I started this. We both really enjoy our coffee, and we started having coffee together in the morning. Once our kids were born, we realized that we needed to get up earlier than them in order to get anything done. We both had full-time jobs, and we went away, and you come home and it's all starts up again, right? So we started getting up earlier than our kids and having coffee together. And honestly, we still do that today. That doesn't even mean that we talk every morning, but we're in the same room. We have our coffee. We enjoy each other's company, but this is also the end of a really long road. So
Yeah.
a little bit of time goes a really long way. You just reminded me of another thing that as my girls grew, started getting older and we were in activities and, so many things were going on. It was so busy and things weren't as good between me and my husband. There was a lot of friction in our lives and it's the lack of communication. And one day I started thinking maybe it's just the lack of my intention of how I was seeing him in the relationship.
Hmm.
I was taking care of my daughters, making sure everything was taken care of. And what you said, you just want to get things done. Well, I used to say, I just want to get things done. I want to get some sleep, you know.
Yeah.
So there comes a point in time. And then I started seeing, well, am I paying any attention to him? And I mean, good intention. Am I actively trying to hear him at the end of the day or doing things, going out together? And we always went out together, but it's the intention of really seeing each other. And I
Hmm.
think that after a few very difficult years, and tiring years, I started seeing that, the problems we were having wasn't just him,
Hmm.
me too. And so I think it
Yeah.
always comes down to how you show up in the relationship. I can't blame anyone for how they're making me feel, but rather how I show up. Um,
Yeah. I love that, Deborah, so much. And it's humbling. It's so humbling to be like, oh, I'm contributing to this as well. And this is actually the introspection I've been going through in my own life of, okay, I need to take responsibility for how I'm showing up or not showing up. And I love what you said. I want to just go back to that one thing you said about having coffee together and not always talking, because that's really freeing to just be in the same space. And to give my husband credit, he always talks about like, we just want you to be in the same space. But then when I'm in the same space, I feel like I need to be engaging with them. But what you're saying, and if my husband's listening to this, he'd be like, "Yeah, I told you I was right." No, but he usually is. But no, he always says like it's just something about you just being in the space with us and not feeling like you have to do anything. That means a lot too. So I loved that you said that.
Yeah, thank you. It's really made a big difference in how just having those moments, just saying good morning and meaning it, saying I love you as you leave the house. We've created these habits over time. But there's another thing, um, how our point of reference comes up. For me, having gone through a difficult time with my husband and growing up through a difficult time, both of my parents were remarried, and there were, new spouses in the relationship. And I was very close to my mother's husband. As a matter of fact, my children called him grandpa.
Mm,
Um, but my father's third wife didn't want anything to do with us.
mm,
And part of this, my own story was no matter what, I never wanted to do that to my children.
mm,
I wanted the two people that loved them more than anything in the world to be their reference as they grew up, that feeling as they grew up. It was more of that. I didn't want them to feel or experience the things I went through. And the reason I say that is because you think, I learned these really tough lessons, but they learn them anyways. They just learn them differently than you did,
mm,
so that they still go through the same pain of growth and trauma in a different way, because we all do it to our kids.
mhm.
Um, they'll still go through it, but that really drove me. I didn't want to bring anyone else to the relationship, and never was that an option, but there was that drive for me to make it work. So I was
Mm.
really driven.
Yeah, that intention. And that is definitely something that my husband and I have is the intention of, this is important to us. And it almost gives the space of allowing for it not all to be great all the time. It's like a guiding light in a way
Yeah.
through those more challenging times, which is normal to go through. I think it's a fairy tale to think that you get in a relationship and it's just going to be amazing every moment, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And those hard, sticky points are what make those good points so much better, you know?
right. And those sticky points are opportunities for growth, for your own self healing. Like when I get triggered, I get a chance and an opportunity to look at something within me that's ready to be healed and wanting to be healed. And so, well, I guess I have my question to you is in that moment of like you're realizing it's been really challenging for the last few years, it's been really challenging. I have an intention to make it through and to stick together. How do you go through that reinvention process? What are some ways that you could share that would help people maybe who are experiencing that to reinvest and reinvent themselves?
Um, that's such an excellent question. I think there's really only one way to start to reinvent or uh, go through some type of resiliency of getting to that next stage of any relationship is really digging deep within yourself.
Mm.
You really need to know what it is you want. Um, and, really, I don't know if the word is sure, but you have to be confident that you're with the right person that can you know, help you achieve that. Having just been through my daughter's wedding, and I see, this young couple starting out and from their core values, and really knowing and loving each other from the core was really a good reminder that that's how my husband and I started out. When you're young, you don't have the responsibilities. We didn't have a house payment or kids. We were just us.
Mhm.
So really sometime midlife or with your kids, whatever, you have to get back down to who you really are
Mhm.
and really down to the core by releasing, all the judgments, all the things, all the crap, the stories we're telling ourselves or we're holding on to, or our point of reference of our own childhood.
Mhm.
And you have to really start digging deep and seeing who you are and what do you want at this stage of your life. And,
Mm.
even looking at my daughter and her relationship, they were together 6 years. Well, I saw massive changes in those 6 years. So, you have to understand that not only are you growing and changing and experiencing different things, so are they.
Mhm.
And the more you know yourself and understand what you want, the more you can see in them. And that's kind of the beauty. You know, the more I know myself, the more I understand and embrace my relationship. And honestly, I'm so grateful for the relationship I have.
Yeah. So, how do you discern the difference between who you are, okay, and just like really getting to know who you are? And how is that different from this person is triggering me and I don't want to look at that stuff. So this relationship must be wrong. Is there, especially I think when you're in it, and sometimes when I'm in my own stuff, my mind gets really confused and it's challenging to discern the difference between the two. Um, do you have any
Yeah.
help with
But
that?
we all get triggered. Doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
what stage of the relationship, sometimes more than others. And I think what I really had to learn to do was to stop with that quick response. You
Hmm.
know, that quick thing back or getting mad. I had to find a way to control my emotions, to regulate my emotions.
Hmm.
So if I could just take a deep breath and understand, did I see that right? Is that really what just happened? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you for myself, 99% of the time, I got it wrong. You know,
Yeah. I have that experience
absolutely
too.
got it wrong. And if we think about how many times we think, oh my God, that's not what I meant when we're talking, or you think somebody thinks something about you and that really wasn't true,
Mhm.
And so as soon as I learned how to take a deep breath and not immediately respond, and maybe just if you need to immediately respond, just maybe say something like, I need to think about this for a minute. You
Mm.
know, there's always a nice way of saying it and walk away. You
Yeah.
know, the quickest way for me to regulate my emotions so I can start to think about, because when you're triggered, you're angry and, our emotions are all over the place, is to really just do some breath work, you know,
Mm.
breathing in and out and focusing on our breath and that up and down. It kind of brings those triggers and that emotion back down, at least so you can walk away.
Right.
And then if I really want to dig deep, for me, I need to journal it out. Sometimes
Mhm.
I need to work out and then
Mhm.
journal it out so I can really see, is the story I think I heard or the story I'm telling myself really what just happened?
Mhm.
Um, and I oftentimes come back and think, that wasn't it. He was just expressing his opinion, and he has every
Right.
right to do that.
Right. Because we get in this pattern where if someone, if our partner does something that they've done many times before, we just think, oh, that's just what they're doing. They're doing the same thing. But it's like you have to reprogram how you receive information and how you speak it and how you take it and how you observe it. And I love the idea of taking a breath, and like taking a breath, I'm defining as like stepping away, really looking into what it was that it brought up within me, and also asking my partner, is this what you meant? Because this is how I heard it. Is this what you meant? Because I want to make sure that I'm hearing it as you intended, and like stopping the response to ask that question. Because I find that a lot of times if I ask that question, then we can just, get past the reaction quickly because I just interpreted it wrong, or
Yeah.
I interpreted it in it with the filter of maybe something that had happened in the past. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, so right on. I want to add one thing to that I've taught myself over the years is that even if I disagree, that doesn't mean that I can change his mind right now,
Mm.
but over time, I probably can.
Oh.
Nothing happens immediately, but sometimes by taking the discussion a different place. For me, the car is always good because you're not looking at each other. You have
Hmm.
just great discussions when we're in the car because we're not looking, you're not feeling that. But I always think, okay, over time, I can get him to see my point of view, or I can change this, or we can work on it. And it doesn't have to be an immediate thing.
Mm. Right. The journey of you know, well, what do you do when you can't change his mind? When it's like he thinks this, I think this, and
I think over time, we know each other so well at this point. And,
yeah,
I'm also at a different phase because my kids are out of the house.
right.
And so our time is opened up and we do spend a lot more time together. And honestly, we're really compatible.
Hmm.
Um, is that there's always a way that we work it out. Maybe when the kids were home and I was much more, triggered by many more things. But right now, we either come to a happy medium or, it just works out because our goals at this time in our life are so similar.
Hmm.
That also didn't happen in a vacuum. That, came from a lot of pain and a lot of ups and downs and discussions. And early on, I feel like when I was where you were, when I had kids your age, that discussions were really hard,
Hmm.
because if you're actually out, say on a date or out to dinner, you know, you don't want to talk about that hard stuff. You want to enjoy yourself and have fun.
Yeah.
So I think it was around that time that I started thinking, well, okay, it's not going to happen, but I have to believe it will. So I just have to be patient. Whether
Mm.
that's the right thing or not, it worked for me.
Oh, I agree with that. And knowing that, there are these, mountains and caverns, right? It's like, and that, you know, you're gonna get there eventually if you have a common intention. And that's something that you just said that I really love. And something that my husband and I do is we come together at least at the end of the year and really look at what are our common intentions. And I think that having those intentions, help to guide the energy of the year. And that's how you can reinvent your relationship, reinvent yourself. And so some of the huge takeaways that I'm getting from this conversation with you, for me personally, is to make space to be together, and that you don't have to always talk, but to be in each other's space can be just as impactful to connect. And having that common intention, having the patience to know that you'll move through it. And I just love all these. They're so helpful for me. Is there anything else that you want to add to all of that?
There is, and I think it's a really big one. And I think that especially women, we need to take care of ourselves.
Mm.
That you have to, I'm at the phase of my life now that I need to eat healthy. Health is absolutely everything. So, the better I feel about me, what I put in my body, what I read, how I work on my mindset, um, taking a walk, getting out into nature makes all the difference in every relationship, not just mine. So I can't be saying, well, he's not doing this. I want to be the person that he is still interested in. In order for me to do that, I need to take care of me.
Right.
I need to take care of myself. I need to stay healthy and active and interested in, keep my mind active, reading, taking courses, doing things that I enjoy outside of what we enjoy in the relationship. And it's all about, and I have this story of, this was actually a friend who had asked me about this a few years ago. She's much younger than me and has young kids. And she said she felt guilty going out at night, and because her husband didn't want to go out at night. And she loved to go out with her friends, and she was always going to plays and doing all these things. And now that she had a son, her husband didn't want to do those things. And so she was going to stay home. And I said, please don't. He married you, and he knew that you had all of these outside interests that made you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to continue that and build on it and grow on it and become more of who you are, instead of deciding that, that mommy guilt, that women guilt we have, we need to be home and doing this. And I
Yeah.
did that. And so I'm going to tell other women, don't do that. Continue to be yourself, build on yourself. And that's where the attraction comes from.
Well, because if you're being yourself, you are loving yourself. And if you start to not be yourself, right, because you're trying to please the other person, then you are creating this, block within self-love, self-care, and you become less attractive. It's not even really the way you look physically. It's really the light that you have coming from within you that's ignited and sparked because you feel excited about your life and you feel aligned with your life. And so I talk about that a lot on the podcast, is falling in love with yourself and being in love with yourself, that's not a selfish thing. It's a sacred practice to attract the love that you want, is from loving yourself and really being yourself and knowing who you are. So I love that you guided her in that way. And that's the beauty of what friendship or coaching, that I think we do a lot in our coaching, is to allow it to be okay, right? To give the space to stay aligned and in tune with yourself first and foremost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in every relationship, wherever you go in life, that's always the number one thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I love every word you said and how you said it. It's exactly how I feel.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Well, this is always a conversation because we could sit and talk for hours. Um, and I just love what you said and all of the tips that you gave. Anything else you want to leave us with? You had something you wanted to read, and I love that you read it to me before.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to read that, but I just want to share after 32 years with my husband, the benefits that we see of being together now, of experiencing my daughter's wedding and some family events, hard and not so hard together because we know each other's history, has really been, some of the highlights of
hmm,
staying together and making it work and going
hmm.
out to the future. But I have this saying I took off the internet that I just think says it all. And so I'll read it. And
Okay.
and they lived happily ever after then they lived through chaotic, hard, difficult, amazing, beautiful, heartbreaking, wonderful, confusing, exhausting, breathtaking moments, because after all, that's what living is.
Oh,
That pretty much says it all.
yes. Yes. So if you are out there listening to this and you are in, a sticky time, is how I say it, in your relationship, know that you're not alone, that it's normal, that it's a part of life. And, we're here to support you in this podcast. If you feel like you're really struggling, reach out to Debra, reach out to me, and, we'd love to support you to help you through that because I know that when I have faced super challenging times, I've needed to reach out. I've needed help to get out of my head and to understand what was going on and have someone who was outside of me help me to, unscramble all of the thoughts, right? That my mind will like make into a tightly knotted ball of yarn. So we're here for you. I'm going to link in the show notes how to reach Debra and also how to learn more about what she does. And we thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Debra. Love it as always.
Thank you, Carrie. Always loved talking with you.
Always, always. Thank you for listening to the Relationship Diversity Podcast. Want to learn more about relationship diversity? I've got a free guide I'd love to send you. Go to www.relationshipdiversitypodcast.com to get yours sent right to you. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. You being here and participating in the conversation about relationship diversity is what helps us create a space of inclusivity and acceptance together. The more comfortable and normal it is to acknowledge the vast and varied relating we all do, the faster we'll shift to a paradigm of conscious, intentional, and diverse relationships. New episodes are released every Tuesday and Thursday. Stay connected with me through my website, carriejaroslow.com, Instagram, and TikTok. Stay curious. Every relationship is as unique as you are. Are you wondering why you never seem to find lasting fulfillment in your relationships? Or do you create the same kinds of relationship experiences over and over again? Can you never seem to find even one person who you want to explore a relationship with? Have you just given up hope altogether? If this sounds like you, my recent book, Why Do They Always Break Up With Me, is the perfect place to start. The foundation of any relationship, whether intimate or not, is the relationship we have with ourselves. In the book, I lead you through 8 clear steps to start or continue your self-exploration journey. You'll learn about the importance of self-acceptance, gratitude, belief shifting, and forgiveness, and given exercises to experience these life-changing concepts. This is the process I use to shift my relationships from continual heartbreak to what they are now, fulfilling, soul-nourishing, compassionate, and loving. It is possible for you. This book can set you on a path to get there. currently available through Amazon or through the link in the show notes.